Hey everybody, here today to talk about laying out alignments for the first time. I have some alignments shown here that I did for a project, and I kind of wanted to go over a few things that I did to lay these out. I did a few interesting things with these particular alignments that I think is kind of helpful in making it so they're easily adjustable, um, making it so you don't have intervals on your alignment. I feel like in the past I've had issues where I have intervals and I run into problems where I need to stretch something out or, cutting a corridor down it or something just doesn't work right. So I always try to avoid intervals at all costs, but this method here kind of allows me to do that. So we'll start. This is a really long alignment, and we'll just kind of start laying out a few tangents and arcs just to get the idea of what's going on. So I'll keep this alignment here and we can kind of discuss some of these other things. But the first thing I usually do is start laying out some construction elements. So I have this construction element down here that I'm essentially using to set my bearing through this intersection so that both of my streets line up. Essentially all the lanes kind of line up, and that was kind of one of the challenges of this project, was to make sure this intersection lined up. So I'll begin by just grabbing this and just trace over the top of this dashed line here, and I'm going to stretch it out because part of this is I don't want any of these to be ruled to anything. I just want them to be free floating things, just in case, now I can just take this and move this around if I want to. And the next thing I started doing is, based on the study for this job, the typical section was basically dictating that the center line was a certain offset from one of the right-of-way lines, this bottom right-of-way line here. I believe it was 94 feet. So that was essentially what we tried to maintain throughout all of this. And so for each of these particular pieces, each of these tangent sections, I can just turn this off now. I kind of just went on top of this right-of-way line for the entire tangent section and then stretched it out. We'll just do a couple of these. So now I have an arc. There's another tangent piece down here. Just draw a line over the top of it. Just getting a line along that bearing. And we probably want to I usually just make sure that all of these crisscross a little bit. Just go do a couple arcs here. And then the final tangent piece here. Get these all laid out. And then I went ahead and used my red. So we're going to single offset this entire element, and we said 94 feet. 94 feet. So now I'm basically getting all of the tangent pieces of the alignment that I want to do. Let's get all these tangents. I want to turn on my alignment here and just see what this offset was in a minute. So from here to here was 43 feet. And then here to here is 35 point. I think this might be on a slightly different bearing. Maybe it's a different offset. But anyway, I was trying to keep these mostly lined up, but we won't worry about this. I'm just going to turn this off for right now, since it's not really relevant to what we're doing. So again, this was 43 feet. If I take, grabbing that and do 43 feet. Okay. turn this off again. So now that we've got my construction lines laid out, I can start drawing things on my center line. And I know that this radius, first radius, is supposed to be 570 feet. That's kind of what we came up with based on we're kind of slowing down the design speed as we enter the intersection. So we're also trying to get it to fit within the right of way and not take a bunch on this corner. So we went with 570 feet. So we can do an arc between elements, simple arc. We'll just do 570 feet. I don't want to do any trimming or extending. So I want to keep these construction elements out here. So that, these can be extended and moved around. So our next radius is 3,600. So we can go ahead and do that one. 3,600. And the last one is, I'm just looking at my plans here, 4,000. Yeah, so we've got those laid out. I'm just going to turn off these levels so I can get in here and see what I'm doing. Now I want to start doing the tangent pieces. So I can do a single offset partial on my construction line, snap it to this intersection, and then snap it to the endpoint of that arc. Same thing up here, endpoint of the arc, endpoint of the arc, endpoint of the arc, endpoint. And then we'll just let this go out for 500 feet or something. So the idea for this was that potentially we might have needed to change this tangent offset if we weren't able to tie down within that 94 feet. So for example, maybe this offset needed to be 98 feet and this one needed to be 102. And this one could stay at 94. So what that allowed me to do is just change the offset of this, and the arc remained 3,600 while being tangent to those two tangent lines. So I'm able to easily adjust all of that stuff. And then, obviously you can come in here if you want and change the radius to whatever you need it to be, and it adjusts everything without having to create intervals. So I have no intervals currently in this alignment, which was my goal. And then if you wanted to complex this, you come over here, start it up. I just have it on automatic right now. Sometimes you might need to turn it to manual if you have other lines or things that are at the end or in the middle somewhere kind of interfering with it, doing it properly automatically. So just keep that in mind. So I'll have my automatic. Now I have my alignment here that can still be, I can still adjust the radii, but I still have these elements out here. Let's say we decided that, or maybe this isn't the right of way line or something. So I could always move this line over and it shifts. So I'm still 94 feet off of this line, or whatever this is, 102 feet. So this allows me to kind of have some controlling elements to shift this right of way around. So if we go back. So this is probably, this could be more handy when you're trying to lay out an alignment that is going through an area where you don't have right of way, where everything is proposed and you're trying to kind of fit in a right of way. and I can kind of cover that next and figure out how we want to show that. But that's essentially creating an alignment, and then, let's just say this needs to start at 400. So I can do a start station. I can do here. And if I hit Alt, no, end, it releases me from being snapped to there. But now I'm picking, the start point. So maybe, like right here is supposed to be station 400. If I click right there and I call that station 400, and then I come in. Now if I click, it knows that this point is station 400. I could always click here and edit this station right here, and it'll change what the start station is. So that means there's still stationing on this alignment back here. It'll be 399 plus whatever. If I come in and do annotate, you can see that it's starting right here at 400 and going through and annotating everything. If I go and change this to 401, for example, it'll take a second here because it's redoing all the annotation too. So it redid the annotation as well as the rules of the line. So that's how I would lay out an alignment when I had some sort of parameters as far as right of way or something that I needed to follow. And you can see how this is handy in that I can adjust the offset from the right of way line depending on my tie down needs and all that. So if I had put a corridor on here and determined that, I was tying outside the right of way in this area, then yeah, maybe I needed to move this over 4 feet, and that helps me tie within the right of way. So those are the options that you have here. And then obviously you also have no intervals on this alignment. So next I'll get into how I would go about creating an alignment through an area where we didn't really have any right of way dictating where we needed to go. Okay, so in this case, we've got a situation where it's a little bit of a combination of the two. I've got some right-of-way lines / property lines that I need to follow the bearing of, essentially, as well as trying to get between the two through some open space. So what I have to start is I have some sample plans or some alternatives that I'm referencing to try and lay out the alignment for. So really what I did is, started with my construction line like I did before and offset that 57.5 based on the plans. They've also told me that, so I have the bearing of the alignment from that, so I match the bearing here. And I have a distance for that line before it hits an arc. So the radius of that arc is 1375. So what I want to do is, get this arc in here and set the next tangent between, so there's an arc, a tangent, and another arc up here. So I'm trying to keep doing the construction line method here where I want to do an arc from element, simple arc from element, from the construction line, and I want to snap to the end of this line because that's setting the tangent distance that I need. And then I can put in my 1375 radius, and I'm just going to pull this out pretty far. So it just extends way beyond where it needs to go, just like I do with the tangent construction lines. And then I can come back in and on my center line level, and I know the length of this is 1076.42. So I'll do a single offset partial. It's 76.42. And jump back on my construction lines again, and I want to draw a line from element by angle from element. I'm going to do it from the construction line, snap to the end of that arc defining my length, and do 0. And I want to start it here going so that I can continue going tangent in the direction of my alignment. So I start back here and go forward. And now I know that the next arc radius is also 1375 between this line and this line. And again, you can see I set up my construction line here along this right-of-way line, and the plans are defining the offset here for the center line, so that I'm able to come in and just do, my normal arc between elements. 1375. And then I can just draw a tangent between them. Gotta hit end because I'm locked to the length, so I have to hit end to get off that. Okay. So now I have that alignment set up and I continue going. So since this is kind of, something that we may be potentially changing in the future, or, we're kind of evaluating alternatives at this point, I wanted to use this construction line and all of this stuff to make this as easy to change as possible. So maybe we come in here and we want to start looking at, a radius or something that can be normal crown. So if I wanted to go with like 2100 feet, if this is 45, so that starts pushing, so that you can see how that length stayed the same, the radius changed, and it changed the tangent. So maybe that's not something you want to do. Maybe you want to keep that tangent in here, in which case you would you'd probably just draw this line in here. You wouldn't need the blue line in that instance because there's nothing in here to set that blue line on. There's no right-of-way line, which is what we've been using it for in the past. So maybe you just come in here with a tangent. The other thing we, consider maybe is, coming in here with, we've got 2 arcs in here. So I'm going to Control Z back to because what I'm trying to do originally is lay out the alignment that's shown in the alternative plans here. So the only way I can do that is to, follow the radius and the length and all of these tangent lengths to try and lay this out as accurately as possible. But maybe we want to come in here and draw an arc, just a single arc in here that is normal crown, something like this. We have different options we can use because we have these construction lines in here. We can start looking at different options. So let's just say eventually I wanted to maybe look at moving this alignment up to this area here and using this right away. One of the things that you want to do first is click this arc, because right now as I drew it, it hasn't locked its distance. It's basically going to hold this point in space right now. But if I go and just type a distance in here, like 2200, now this arc will always be 2200 feet at this radius. I actually tried this just a second ago and it got messed up because when I moved this thing up here, this arc was not drawing properly. But now if I take this and move this up to here, we still have our arc drawing at our radius in 2200 and we're getting this to work properly. So you can see how I was able to slide all of that stuff up because I have these construction lines that spread so far out. I'm able to easily manipulate this alignment, and maybe this bearing isn't exactly right or something. Maybe I want to change this to 89. I broke it. Didn't like that. I have to do 0, 0, 0. So I change that, I've got the bearing changed, where I want to reduce this distance to 650 feet. Now we're changing that distance there. Starting to play with that. In this case, we'd probably just end up using the construction lines again for this right-of-way piece to get back up into here. But you can see how easy it is to manipulate all this stuff when you have construction lines and dictating where your alignment goes. So hopefully I've covered pretty much everything. If anybody has any questions on creating alignments, if there's something I missed, put it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot, everyone.